weren't supposed to see that. There we go. Oh, if you can see, I've got me a more interactive pngtuber thing going on here. Got me a little program to give it some motion. Yeah. Alright, so welcome to Spooky Sunday. And as you can see, have not gotten the laptop back yet. So we're still PNG tubing for the moment. And just doing simple streams, so. I guess just go ahead and get this started.
Few stories in horror have left a legacy as profound as Stephen King's classic The Shining, and few adaptations have divided audiences as sharply as the two we are looking at today. Stanley Kubrick's 1980 film is a cornerstone of cinematic horror, hailed as a masterpiece for its unforgettable imagery, psychological depth and haunting ambiguity. It's a film that has stood the test of time, commonly cited as one of the greatest horror films ever made. But in 1997, Stephen King, unhappy with the Kubrick's take on his novel, offered his own vision, a miniseries adaptation that promised to stay faithful to the source material. King's version had its own goals, its own tone, and its own approach to the story of Jack Torrance and the Overlook Hotel. Two adaptations, two vastly different takes. One the work of a cinematic auteur, the other a deeply personal response from the man who wrote the story. Their histories are inseparably tied to this tension, and together they form a fascinating case study of what happens when two creative minds collide. But can they both coexist? And does the often panned 1997 miniseries have what it takes to step out of the shadow of its masterpiece predecessor? This is the tale of two Shinings. The story of The Shining begins with Stephen King's 1977 novel, a deeply personal work inspired by his own struggles with alcoholism and a stay at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. Nestled in the mountains, the Stanley was eerily empty during King's visit, and its isolation sparked the idea for the Overlook Hotel. Combined with King's own fears of hurting his family during a turbulent period in his life, the novel became a haunting exploration of addiction, family, and looming supernatural evil. After the major success of the book, it was no surprise that Hollywood came knocking. Stanley Kubrick, fresh off Barry Lyndon and now bored, wanted to try something new. Kubrick was notoriously choosy about his films, meticulously combing through piles of novels until he found one that resonated. Legend has it that he chose The Shining after throwing King's manuscript across the room, only to pick it up later and decide it had something going for it. Kubrick saw The Shining as an opportunity to blend his love of psychological complexity with the visceral thrill of horror. He viewed the Overlook Hotel not just as a haunted location, but as a surreal, almost malevolent force, warping the minds of its occupants. The 1980 adaptation became a passion project, with Kubrick personally reworking the script, much to King's frustration.
And there are an awful lot of things about that movie that I think are flawless and beautiful and just marvelous. And then there are other times when I feel as though I'd given Stanley Kubrick a live grenade and he heroically threw his body on it.
A beautiful Cadillac without an engine. Kubrick even changed the color of the VW Beetle to yellow instead of red as in the original novel, and while Halloran makes his return to the Overlook, he sees a crushed red Beetle. This had to have been less than a subtle screw you pointed towards the famous writer. By the mid-1990s, King finally had a chance to reclaim his story. Teaming up with ABC, he wrote and produced a three-part miniseries adaptation. This version was a deliberate correction, faithful to the novel in almost every way. It retained Jack Torrance's humanity, focused on his tragic gradual downfall, and expanded on the Overlook's history and supernatural presence. While watching the miniseries, one might suspect it was done with a small budget, which just isn't so. A completely respectable $21 million were invested into the project, ironically a bit more what Kubrick had in 1980, not counting for inflation. That budget is in the territory of 90s classics like Toy Story and Seven, and even longer format films like Shawshank Redemption and Dances with Wolves. With money, his own creativity, and the will to make things right, King now had the tools to make it happen.
Stephen King, the master of terror and suspense, invites you to begin a journey to a place where fear never dies.
Everything worth saying about the Kubrick movie has probably already been said, and plenty more at that. So to keep this video in a more manageable format, the following chapters will be focused on the more unknown miniseries. But let's quickly tackle the obvious 1980 elephant in the room. Stanley Kubrick was the driving force, his meticulous approach shaping every frame of the film. Jack Nicholson's portrayal of Jack Torrance has become iconic, a larger-than-life performance brimming with madness and menace. Shelley Duvall, though often overshadowed in discussions, delivered a vulnerable and human portrayal of Wendy Torrance, endearing not only the Overlook's horrors but Kubrick's infamous on-set behavior, out of which Scatman Crothers as Dick Halloran also got his part. Then there's Danny Lloyd, whose portrayal of Danny Torrance remains one of the most memorable child performances in horror. Just 6 years old during filming, Lloyd balanced the innocence of a child with the eerie wisdom of someone shining. And of course there's the technical crew like the legendary cinematographer and Kubrick regular John Alcott, whose Steadicam work revolutionized visual storytelling. But let's turn our attention to the 1997 miniseries, beginning with its director Mick Garris. A frequent collaborator of Stephen King, Garris had already directed King's The Stand and Sleepwalkers. Garris approached The Shining with a steady hand, placing the story and the characters above visual experimentation. His direction wasn't flashy but intentional, ensuring that King's vision was the star of the show. The cast too reflected this commitment to King's story. Steven Weber, best known at the time for his work on Wings, brought an entirely different energy to Jack Torrance. His portrayal started with warmth and humanity, showing Jack as a man battling his inner demons, mainly alcoholism and violent streaks that came with it. Rebecca De Mornay delivered a strong, assertive Wendy Torrance. A far cry from Shelley Duvall's portrayal, De Mornay's Wendy fought tooth and nail to protect her family, embodying the resilience King had envisioned for the character. Meanwhile, Cortland Mead played Danny Torrance with innocence and vulnerability, though comparisons to Danny Lloyd's haunting performance in the 1980 film were unavoidable. Melvin Van Peebles brought warmth to Dick Halloran, stepping into a role that was more substantial than in Kubrick's version. Halloran's deeper connection to the Overlook and his mentoring of Danny were given more room to breathe, aligning closely with King's novel. And then there was Stephen King himself. As both writer and an active producer, King's presence was felt throughout the miniseries because of his vast creative control. From crafting the script to shaping performances, he was determined to bring his story to life in his own terms. With a trusted director, a passionate if modest cast, and King's guiding hand, the 1997 miniseries brought together all the elements for a faithful retelling. Whether those elements were enough to step out of the 1980 version's long shadow is a question we will continue to explore. The production of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining has become the stuff of legend, as much a part of the film's mystique as the movie itself. Kubrick was notorious for his perfectionism, often demanding dozens or even hundreds of takes to get a single scene just right. Shelley Duvall in particular bore the brunt of his intensity, with her performances as Wendy Torrance famously requiring over 120 takes in the baseball bat scene alone.
No desperation. Oh, come on. What do you mean roll video? We're fucking killing ourselves out here and you're going to be ready.
I am too. I'm standing
So we
right
play
by
mood
the
music?
door.
The grueling approach wasn't limited to the actors. The crew too faced relentless demands to meet Kubrick's exacting standards. The Overlook Hotel's unforgettable interiors were painstakingly constructed on sound stages at Elstree Studios in England. Inspired by the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite, the production team created a space that felt simultaneously grand and claustrophobic, blending luxury with foreboding. Kubrick's use of Steadicam captured the Overlook's labyrinthine halls with fluidity that mirrored the story's psychological descents. The result was a visual masterpiece, though the production left many involved physically and emotionally drained. Now let's turn to the 1997 miniseries. A production was more modest in scale. Unlike Kubrick, King insisted on authenticity and emotional fidelity to his novel, starting with the location. The miniseries was filmed on location at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, the very place that had inspired The Shining in the first place. This gave the production a sense of authenticity that King felt Kubrick's studio-built Overlook perhaps lacked. However, shooting on location came with its challenges. The Stanley Hotel was an active business, which meant filming had to work around the guests and the staff, adding logistical hurdles. Budget constraints meant that the elaborate set pieces were rare, and some of the supernatural elements like the topiary animals and the infamous fire hose relied on dated CGI that hasn't aged gracefully. Jack Torrance, a struggling writer and recovering alcoholic, accepts a job as a winter caretaker of the isolated Overlook Hotel in Colorado. He moves in with his wife Wendy and their psychic son Danny, hoping the solitude will help him focus on his writing and rebuild his fractured family. Danny possesses a powerful ability known as the Shining, which allows him to see past and future events as well as communicate telepathically with others who have the same gift. Before leaving for Florida, the hotel's cook Dick Halloran warns Danny to stay away from a certain room and be cautious of the hotel's dark history. As winter sets in, the hotel's supernatural forces begin manipulating Jack, preying on his insecurities, past traumas, and his addiction to alcohol. Jack slowly descends into madness, pushed by the hotel's malevolent spirit, which often manifests as deceased former guests and staff. Danny, meanwhile, experiences terrifying visions of the hotel's past horrors, as his psychic powers keep feeding the hotel and slowly bringing it back to life. Wendy grows increasingly concerned as Jack's behavior becomes more erratic and violent. She fails to contain him, and Jack eventually succumbs completely to the hotel's influence and turns on his family, pursuing them through the hotel wielding a two-handed weapon.
Here's Johnny!
Dick Halloran rushes back to the hotel only to be struck down by the mad caretaker. Jack ultimately fails at his attempt and loses his life in the process, allowing Danny and Wendy to make their escape from the Overlook with a snowcat.
Go check it out!
I've seen Kubrick's The Shining at least a dozen times, but I never really planned on reviewing it. Much smarter, more competent people than me have already done it, some even to excess. If you haven't seen Room 237, you really should. It's a mind-bending deep dive into the obsessive interpretations people can come up with. As for me, I don't have anything new to add. The movie is a visual masterpiece and, in my opinion, the most cinematographically stunning horror film ever made. Watching it now on 4K is almost a transcendent experience. The only real criticism I have is that the pacing always felt rushed and abrupt, especially if you've read the book. It's not a movie you just throw on casually, it's something you watch in a certain mood. It's unsettling, uncomfortable, and I always get the same eerie, creeping bad mood I feel when watching Angel Heart or Martyrs. The miniseries is a different beast entirely. Now, if you judge the miniseries by classic hard factors, cinematography, editing, sound design, acting, effects, direction, it doesn't even come close to Kubrick's version. It's visually unimpressive, bland, some of the acting is just off, the kid is cringy, the CGI horrendous, and the sound design is completely forgettable. It's worse in almost every way. And I absolutely love it. This has been one of my guilty pleasures since I was a teenager. Scratch that, I refuse to call it a guilty pleasure anymore. Just like Kubrick's version, I watch it when I'm in a very specific mood, except the complete opposite mood. Where Kubrick's film is intense, challenging, and leaves much room for interpretation, the miniseries is the easiest viewing experience imaginable. It doesn't engage you, challenge you, or ask you to interpret anything. Everything is laid out through exposition, and all you have to do is to keep your eyes open and breathe. And honestly, it's not even scary, not in the least. Unless, of course, you're scared of CGI fire hoses or hedge animals or these terrifying ghosts. Now, for an amateur dilettante film critic's output, that might sound like an insult, but I genuinely mean it in the best way possible. When I wake up with a pounding hangover, or I'm stuck in bed with a bad flu trying to survive the first few hours before I feel remotely human again, this is the movie I watch. Imagine coming home from a long, exhausting week and your significant other has just pulled a fresh batch of warm cinnamon buns out of the oven. You wrap yourself in a cozy blanket and take a bite. That's the miniseries. It goes down as easily as chocolate pudding. Does the miniseries do anything better? Well, yes it does. The longer miniseries format gives the story so much more room to breathe and fleshes out the book's details in the way that Kubrick's film never could. It dives deeper into the hotel's history, explores Jack's inner demons, and never feels rushed. And here's a controversial opinion. I think Steven Weber is a better Jack Torrance than Jack Nicholson. Okay, put the pitchforks down, hear me out.
No.
Jack Nicholson is a fantastic actor and I really love him, but he's also an actor who plays a very specific kind of role better than anyone else. And let's be honest, you need to be a little crazy to play crazy that well. The role of insane Jack Torrance was tailor-made for Nicholson. The problem is, he's not good at playing regular Jack Torrance. Even in the scene when he's just sitting in the Beetle with his family, he already feels off. It's like he already has one hand on that axe handle while making casual conversation.
See? It's okay. You saw it on the television.
Then they check into the hotel and before you know it...
He's mad. He's mad. He's madder than Mad Jack McMad, the winner of last year's Mr. Madman competition.
Weber, on the other hand, does a great job portraying normal, struggling Jack Torrance before his descents. He plays a man desperately trying to keep himself together, and because of his descent is more gradual, I actually sympathize with him. Also, Rebecca de Monet's Wendy is portrayed in a more believable fashion, and her protectiveness over Danny is apparent from the start. So, can both versions peacefully coexist? Absolutely, they should coexist. They must coexist. Despite sharing the same name and source material, they are so far removed from each other that they should be treated as completely separate works. Kubrick's movie is haute cuisine, it's your fine dining, Michelin-starred excellence. It's caviar on artisanal crackers served in a 3-star restaurant. The miniseries? It's one of these. A fast food chain mega burger. Sloppy, mass-produced, lukewarm and bland. And somehow still amazing. Kubrick's film is like listening to Bach from a vinyl through handcrafted tube amps with high-end speakers. The miniseries is a Jimmy Buffett mixtape, played from that thrift store boombox your dad used to keep in his garage. And there's nothing wrong with either. I have seen the miniseries way more times than the Kubrick version, and I've eaten way more hamburgers than lobster thermidor. It's okay to like both, they scratch completely different itches. I feel the same way about Rose Red, which came out 5 years later, but I never see anybody talking about that movie. Similar format, similar production values, and it has really grown on me. It's not great horror, but a great story that scratches the same itch. If you can find it, give it a shot. Your opinion of it will likely match your opinion of the Shining miniseries. So, which version is better? There's no real answer I can give you. One is objectively superior in almost every way, but I still find myself popping the old miniseries DVD 3 or 4 times a year. It's all about the mood you're in. Are you looking for artistic thrills or pure comfort? All I know is whenever I wake up with a headache from hell and I see that red beetle driving towards Overlook, I just sit there and stand in awe. Well, sit in awe or lay in awe. Can you even lay in awe outside stargazing or amazing sex? Comment down below. I will be back sometime with something else.
Alright, pretty good little video, and I agree. I'll give you a little like. Alright. Alright. Easter egg, creepy Easter eggs from non-horror games. Let's take that one.
What's up guys, it's Gambito Gaming. I'm back for another video. We're talking scary stuff. So I've been talking a lot about creepy things and family-friendly games recently on the channel, but today I want to take a more general look at some of the creepiest Easter eggs found in non-horror games. Easter eggs are more or less usually added in on purpose by the devs and sometimes have a backstory and explanation, but sometimes they don't, which in turn can make them sometimes even more creepy. I think what makes these Easter eggs we'll talk about today so impactful is because they seemingly come out of nowhere and generally shift the tone of the game in a more dark direction, especially since these games aren't typically considered horror games. Sure, some do have horror elements in them, but overall most of these games wouldn't be standing toe-to-toe with old PT in terms of being a horror game or something. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop in and take a look at 8 of the strangest Easter eggs from non-horror games I could find. Rockstar games are always chock full of Easter eggs, whether they're creepy or not. You know, some of them are just plain out dumb.
You eat babies. You have to survive. Everyone knows that.
This isn't just in the obvious Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead series either, as many of these offshoot games also have a fair share of their own creepy Easter eggs. Now, I'm not saying you're going to see the ghost of John Marston hitting a nasty serve back to you in Rockstar Presents Table Tennis.
You eat babies.
But my point is, games like Bully also got the same love the Grand Theft Auto series got when it came to Easter eggs. There are several Easter eggs in the game that reference other media like books and films that are easily seen, but by far the creepiest Easter egg in the game is actually pretty hard to find. When you are strolling around New Coventry, catch me out with the boys in New Coventry at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, you can run in between these two buildings and wait a minute to hear a pretty disturbing sound effect in the game. If you want to hear it clearly, it's recommended to turn everything except for the game sound effects down to 0 to isolate this creepy audio track. If you do this, you'll be able to hear a crying baby inside one of the apartments on the other side of the wall you're standing on. This is only able to be heard when you visit the area from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but if you come back after hours when it's dark, you can hear an extension of the baby's audio track. Come back after you punched a teacher in the stones and juking out a fat nerd. Past 6 p.m., you'll be able to hear not only the baby screaming, but a lady occasionally screaming on and off as well. At first, this could sound like some sort of ghost lady maybe shrieking and messing with the baby, but when you take a look at the game's back end and search for the individual audio files, you can see this Easter egg's true meaning. All credit for this, at least my research, goes to Nathan NS on YouTube for delving deeper into the audio files here, but it reveals that all the audio files of the lady screaming are actually titled Domestic Fight 1 through 3. There's 3 domestic fight audio files in total, which all sound pretty similar, with the Fight 03 missing the woman screaming altogether, and is likely the same one that can be heard during the day of just the baby crying. However, in this setting, we can also hear crashing sounds, and since the title of these files is Domestic Fight, I think we can all assume what's going on inside there. This is pretty dark even in terms of a Rockstar game. Like, yeah, sure, the disemboweled corpse of a human being is pretty scary and off-putting, but hey, at least it's interesting. Like, who done it? Who's responsible? This Easter egg, this just pisses me off, man. Like, there's nothing you can do either, as it's just an Easter egg and it happens nightly, so there's no solution to this terrible thing happening in the Bully's universe. Compared to the rest of the game, this definitely stands out, as Bully, while it's not the friendliest game, it definitely has its moments, but this seems out of place for a game like this.
Get out of here, you
You scum!
So I guess the rumors are true, Jimmy. Your dad does live on campus.
Like, I don't think this would be any less disturbing in Red Dead 2 or something, but some fucked up stuff can happen in that game too, so it wouldn't be as surprising. But I guess that's what makes this Easter egg stand out so much in the game. If you're unlucky enough to pass it by randomly, you won't soon forget it.
Speaking of RDR2,
Red Dead Redemption 2 alone houses many of Rockstar's best and most disturbing Easter eggs, some of which I think some people are still finding. This is just due to the game's mass and how much time and development went into the world that you play in. Much of what the game has to offer isn't in the main story path at all, and if you want to discover even a little bit that's under the game's surface level, then it's time to hit the old trail, partner. Hey, partner. I always say it with a D, not a T. Partner.
Hey, partner.
hey, partner.
Hello.
Hey, pardon her? No, pardon her. Sorry. While there is a lot to see in the world of Red Dead 2, there's a lesser known Easter egg that I don't see talked about super often, and it's pretty dark. Maybe not so much if you play Red Dead like me on the second playthrough of the game, where I pretty much antagonize, defuse, then shoot, and that method has served me pretty well thus far. But if you're not desensitized to the world and are fully enveloped in being a good Arthur Morgan, then you will likely find the next Easter egg pretty disturbing on your playthrough. In a seemingly abandoned shack in an area known as Clawson's Rest, Arthur can break down the front door and find a pretty grisly scene. You'll find two small kids deceased in the main room of the home. They seem to have died of starvation as the player slowly finds more and more evidence of the children running out of food. They were seemingly left by their mom, who was going to take revenge on a bunch of bandits who stole from them, and stated that she'd board up the door and there's enough food for 4 days and she should be back well before then. She stated not to go out for anything, and after she didn't return, the kids listened to their mother to the T and didn't leave or let anyone in for any reason, resulting in them slowly starving to death. Let's go! Starvation. You can actually find the food rations they'd gone through well before you arrived, and you can even see a makeshift butcher table where it's believed they were catching small rodents like mice to eat. The Easter egg gets a bit deeper as you can actually catch up with the deviants who the mom was looking for and find out what happened to her. I credit Strange Man on YouTube for this information as I watch his video for my research on this topic, and if you want to know a bit more about the entry, I recommend checking out that video. Anyway, when you arrive to a building in the middle of the woods near an area known as Ches Porter, don't know if I said that right, you can hear two men talking about how they kidnapped a woman and eventually their dad killed her and buried her out back in the woods.
Well, you sees when I get a woman like that, don't you? Frazzle dipping all the night.
Frazzle dipping your little pullywag, more like.
We has that one we keeps in the woods. Pappy was boiling when he sees her, don't you?
No real surprise there, as the mother would have definitely went back if she survived, and the kids would have been alive too at that point. This is extremely dark. I mean, there's no way around it. It is something that probably happened all too often back in the day, at least back in the day when the game was set in. And even to some of the NPC families I kill randomly, like, maybe I should stop doing that. Nah, fuck it. Nah, but for real, this is a pretty dark Easter egg, and it gets even darker when you realize this wasn't the original plan for the side story of the game. By digging through the files, players have found evidence that the player would have originally been given a choice of how to interact with the kids upon entering the cabin, one of which was sending them to a nearby sheriff, meaning they were alive. However, as we know, this was ultimately removed and the kids' fates were sealed. There was also a change that showed the mom might have also at one point died at the cabin during the robbery that took place, as there is a model of a dead woman lying on the bed in the cabin in the code of the game. This might have been the setup for the choice of what to do with the abandoned kids who would have still been alive. It's clear Rockstar wanted to go full pedal to the metal in terms of making Red Dead 2's world a very dark one, not only in the game's story that tells a very solemn tale, but the stuff you can run across on a day-to-day basis in the game. It's pretty real to life in that way, I think. You never know what you'll run across, but rest assured it'll probably surprise you, especially if you run into my Arthur Morgan. Oh, watch out. Oh, might drag you behind my horse at 70 miles an hour.
Oh, damn. Death Stranding. Ghost in the what?
Death Stranding wasn't my favorite game when it came out, but I ended up beating it, and throughout my time with the game, I enjoyed it for what it was. The game had a lot of charm hidden behind the menial task you had to perform as the main gameplay. This charm comes through in things like cutscenes, humorous moments, or even moments that aren't supposed to be funny, but definitely are.
Run.
Yeah. Like Mario and Princess Peach.
Really?
This is a ridiculous game, and I'm glad to see they're leaning into it more in the sequel because, like, what the fuck is this shit? Listen, y'all think fucking Alucard shredding an electric guitar as an attack is weirder? Or this little puppet dude hanging on your hip? I still can't tell. It's keeping me up at night. Regardless of what the hell's going on in the second game, we don't have to look too deep to find some of the stranger things in the first Death Stranding. For example, in Sam's home base, there are several Easter eggs that can happen here, ranging from humorous to downright creepy. For example, if you stare at Sam's crotch too much, he'll react as if you were actually peeping at Norman Reedus's big hog in real life. Listen guys, I swear to God, I looked this Easter egg up. I didn't know this from playing the game, okay? Another weird thing that is housed in Sam's headquarters is the shower. This is just usually an off thing you can do in his home, like drinking a big juicy Monster energy drink. However, if you're playing the re-release of the game, i.e. the director's cut, a strange creepy thing can happen. When you awake randomly one night, you will find Sam looking over to the shower, revealing a large shadowy figure silhouette. As Sam approaches the shower, the figure inside will start to shake vigorously until banging around the shower. Then it freezes and the camera slowly zooms in before the glass breaks. The entity comes running out and grabs the camera and jump scares not only the player but Sam himself as he jolts awake, realizing it was a bad dream. A fucking nightmare. Many players have deemed this to be Lisa from PT, and it is a direct reference to her from the cancelled Silent Hills game. I'm unsure if this has ever been confirmed by Kojima himself or anybody who worked on it, but the way the entity moves, I would be surprised if it's not at least a small reference to Lisa from PT. Yo, what up? It's me editing this. Real quick, I wanted to say, when the entity pops out of the glass and jump scares the player, it reveals that, I didn't see this the first time, and it reveals that it's the same slime monster from another nightmare sequence that is supposed to be a direct reference to Hideo Kojima, because the slime monster looks like he has glasses on, and they took that same asset and used it as the entity in the shower for this jump scare. So I don't know if that disproves that it's Lisa, but it also kind of says it's the goo version of Hideo Kojima. It could just be a placement for the entity that pops out of the shower, so they didn't have to port Lisa over or whatever. So it could still be a reference to Lisa from PT, but it's also Gooigi version of Kojima. Gojima, if you will. Anyway, back to the video, just want to clear that up a little bit. It seems there was quite a few of these dream sequences added into the director's cut of the game, as there is a kind of a disturbing one where Sam can be seen walking out of his room and he finds the literal ocean right out front, and before long he's almost eaten by a giant whale that swims by. Both of these are creepy as hell, but nothing is as creepy as when Dead Man forces you into the shower in order to tell you something off record so the mics in the room can't hear him. But in doing so, he comes off like a pervert creep. Like this dude's just in the shower, full suited up, taking the warm shower water right to the face, all while breathing his stank tuna sandwich breath right in Sam's face. Ugh. I'd rather shower with the ghost lady than ever have Dead Man infiltrate my shower like that. Bro is a fucking creep. All of these things really make me enjoy the world building of Death Stranding all the much more, but also makes me yearn even more for a Kojima-led horror game like Silent Hills. The atmosphere of some of these nightmare sequences in Death Stranding proves that Kojima understands the strangeness of horror and how not only to make it scary, but build the world around it to match the scariness in terms of things like atmosphere, visuals, and sound, which has always been great in Kojima games, don't get me wrong. With the second Death Stranding coming in the next few years and the announcement of a new stealth IP coming from Kojima Studios, it seems like we won't be seeing that Kojima horror game anytime soon, but as long as he keeps adding in Easter eggs like this, I think it'll hold me over for the time being. I just really hope they don't go too cheesy with the second game and make it more dark than the first game. The sequel seems to already be addressing some of the complaints of the first game, so I'm hopeful that this will at least match the atmosphere of the first game, which I was a pretty big fan of.
Oh, I remember this Easter egg.
The COD series is no stranger to having Easter eggs hidden without, but in my opinion, the first COD on console still has one of the creepiest Easter eggs in the series since. This is a fairly well-known Easter egg at this point, but I feel like with every subsequent COD release, this game gets more and more obscure, so I want to talk about it today. Call of Duty: The Finest Hour was the first Call of Duty released on console, and it released back in the day for PS2, Xbox, and even GameCube in 2004. The game definitely shows its age today, but it's still a classic to go back to, especially especially compared to the real stinkers they're putting out for the COD series nowadays. Holy shit. You know, this was back when the series wasn't fully after the bag and they were in it for making a good fucking game instead of a buggy, disrespectful to the fans piece of steaming dog shit. Call of Duty Finest Hour had a decent campaign that had a lot of small details, including a pretty creepy Easter egg. In the level known as Underground Passage, there is a large door that seems to be a dead end, but if you huck a grenade at it, it reveals a secret room behind the closed door. This room was clearly meant to be hidden away and not found by many, as the contents of the room are strange to say the least. I'm unsure if there's other walls throughout the game that you could blow up like this, but I don't remember it being that common when I last played it, so you really had to know what was behind this wall to even find it in the first place. Inside the room, you can find a bunch of oddities, including eerie pictures of kids on the wall, strange kids' toys moving on their own or throughout the room, floating candles like you're getting your grub on at Hogwarts, and even this giant caged rat who makes definitely not rat noises. Not to mention there's a crib in the middle of the room, and if the player walks up to it, a ghost soldier of sorts will vaguely appear and walk around the room at a weird angle. The whole scene is very choppy and off-putting, and while you can find some weapons in the room, it seems like the room is there just to be a creepy side area. I don't know what's the creepiest thing in the room. Immediately I want to say this giant-ass rat in the corner or the floating candles, but I think the scariest thing is the pictures on the wall. These seem to be real people, as they aren't as ugly as the in-game models, and mostly are of children and even a cat. There's even this weird fetish one, but I'm not going to talk about that, alright? That's just weird as fuck. And yeah, it's truly the darkest thing in the room if you really break it down, but I'm sure this is just one of those developer appreciation rooms or something to commemorate developers and what's special to them, like children and pets and stuff. And I assume this homie over here didn't have anyone, so he dressed up like a baby as a meme. Regardless of all of that, without the context, this room does come off as pretty creepy, and I can't imagine being one of the first people to discover this back in the day. Imagine trying to convince somebody this existed. Dude, you're lying, alright? There's no fucking baby room in Call of Duty Finest Hour, okay? Earthbound and the Mother series are some of the most influential RPGs and JRPGs of their time and have inspired a plethora of similar strange RPG style games like Undertale and more to a T, Omori. Omori is a game that I saw being talked about a bit when it released, and I saw that it's got its pretty unique take on the style of RPG and was deemed one of the best of its kind when it released. The Easter egg we're going to talk about today has to do with something the player does a decent bit throughout the game and actually acts as more of a jump scare than anything. When a player interacts with any of the 11 mirrors in the game, they have a 1 out of 20 chance of getting jump scared when revealing the character's reflection in the mirror. This comes out of nowhere, and the fact it's on an RNG timer like this, you could technically see this the first time you interact with a mirror in the game, or you could never see it. I have a fear of mirrors as I grew up with the Bloody Mary craze and the whole mirrors or separate dimensions era. I don't know if that was a new concept back then when I was a kid, but I remember hearing a lot about it. Thus, I'm scared of mirrors, alright? Hey, Gambetto, are you sure you're not scared of mirrors because of your own reflection? Hey, good one, dude. I haven't heard that literally any time I brought up that fear. But no, my fear of mirrors really skyrockets this one to another level for me, as it's not only a jump scare, but a jump scare that occurs in a mirror. This isn't your typical ghost appearing jump scare, but is more akin to the void meme category of internet horror, where there is usually a lot of distortion to an image to the point where it's almost not even the same picture anymore. In the case of the mirror jump scare, it only stays on the screen for a few seconds and really makes the player question if what they've seen is even real. What really doesn't help the player feel sane is if they go back to the mirror to check if what they saw was real. There's a good chance it will just play out like a normal cutscene and not give them the jump scare again. This had to make a few people feel like they were going fucking crazy. You've lost the plot, mate. After researching this entry, I've been avoiding looking into my bathroom mirror. I'm scared I'm just gonna void meme out into an alternate dimension beyond my medicine cabinet, guys. I'm thinking about taking it down. I'll have a mirrorless bathroom from here on out. Katana Zero was one of my favorite indie games for a while after it came out. There's a lot to love in the game, from the action-packed gameplay to the gripping, intense story that was being unfolded in the strangest of ways. Like, I'm not even sure I even really know what happened fully in the game, and I beat it twice. The game is definitely darker in its overall tone, dealing with things like PTSD, but it never got anywhere as disturbing as the final hidden boss in the game. Alright, technically a hidden boss isn't an Easter egg, but this is close enough, alright? And any excuse to talk about this thing, I'm gonna take it, alright? Throughout the game, your character interacts with a psychiatrist who is also his prescription doctor who gives him medicine throughout the game, this mystery medicine. To me, this guy was sus off the rip, but he was one of the only characters you would see often and reoccurring, so it gives you a sense that he might actually be on your side throughout. However, in the game specifically when talking to the psychiatrist, you have different dialogue choices pop up, and if you respond negatively every chance you get, then at the end of the game there's a secret boss fight that will unlock. Many people think the headhunter is the true final boss, but this secret final boss is definitely way more of a spectacle in my opinion. The psychiatrist gets pretty angry if you carry out all the negative responses throughout the game, and upon visiting him for the final time, he will inject himself with the medicine he's been providing to the main character, and the boss battle will begin. At first, the psychiatrist seems to just have transcended or something, as he's on his Jesus type beat with this phase. It starts getting pretty strange as you begin winning the battle. He will transform into an insane acid trip where you're attacking eyes. After this, the truly disturbing part of the battle begins as the psychiatrist starts to mutate like some freak you'd see out of a Resident Evil game or something. However, he takes it to a whole nother level. This guy, he started juicing, he couldn't stop, and it got out of hand pretty quickly here. The boss has several heads and it will start spawning these little small meatballs. That's the best way I can describe them. Overall, the battle is pretty involved, and upon defeating the boss, the screen glitches and puts you back where you and the psychiatrist are sitting in the same chairs you guys did throughout the rest of the game. Except this time he's got a fucking sword in his eye. This guy, he threw everything against the wall in order to defeat the player because you pissed him off throughout the game, and in the end, it still wasn't enough. Katana Zero has a lot of this spectacle throughout the game, and with an interesting convoluted story, it's one of the best 2D indie games I've ever played. I heavily recommend this game if you still haven't played it yet.
Oh, this is from one of the Witcher games.
There's several games that have referenced the Weeping Angel statues from Doctor Who, and every time they make an appearance, they usually surprise the player, if they even notice it. It doesn't always have to be a statue, but the basic idea is when someone is looking at a statue or object, it doesn't move, but upon looking away, it will either slowly creep up on the player or just teleport around. This is a pretty common occurrence in games as a creepy Easter egg devs like to add, so instead of covering one in depth, I decided to gather 3 of my favorite examples of this. Let me know down in the comments if you know of any other of these Weeping Angel statue examples in other games. You don't have to look super far in Witcher 3 to see something messed up or creepy, but this Weeping Angel reference happens in one part of the map and is largely unnoticed by most players who might pass upon it. However, if you're familiar and visit the house near a graveyard near Lindenville, you will find these 2 statues standing out front of this crypt. After exiting the crypt, you'll likely find the statues in different areas out front, and if you're unlucky enough, it'll be toe-to-toe with Geralt when he exits the crypt. He's just breathing down your fucking face like a dead man. The statues don't do much beyond scaring the absolute shit out of anyone who entered the crypt, so you won't have to worry about fighting them, but their appearance alone is enough to make me rather fight anything in the game rather than run into these guys again. Give me that big ass Griffin guy again, huh? Give me PETA Griffin, alright? I'll fight that fat fuck. Listen, Dead by Daylight is technically a horror game, but I have over 200 hours in the game, so now for me it's just another day at the office, alright? But regardless, if you're already scared shitless running from the many killers in the game, then you likely won't like this next Easter egg, which is a Weeping Angel Easter egg in one of the maps in the game. In the map known as Sanctum of Wrath, there are these monk-like statues with large round bald heads, and as you walk around the map, their heads will follow the survivor or killer.
Alright, look at this, huh? Oh, that's a nice map. Holy shit, they're looking at me!
This is why I think this might be the scariest thing in the game, because it doesn't matter if you're the little man or the big ass samurai killer. You're getting stared down by these 8 balls over here. You know, thinking back on it, I never really noticed these with my time on the map. To be fair, I'm usually focused on staying away from the killer and doing generators. But now knowing these guys were always staring at me unless I was looking at them, makes me feel a little unnerved thinking back to it. Not to mention the map itself is pretty dark, so to even notice something like this, especially during a match, it would definitely shake someone. They might even choke out a couple skill checks here and there, alright? Thinking about the baldies. Battlefield 5 wasn't my favorite Battlefield game, and I don't think it was for a lot of other people. But hey, at least it wasn't 2042. I don't know, that game could be better now with updates and stuff, but holy shit, that launch was pathetic.
I'm sorry, I don't play video games that lie to me.
Anyway, the developers of Battlefield 5 had a little bit of fun with a particular object in the game. In the conquest mode of the multiplayer, if you load up the Eris map and spawn near point A, you can find these small gnomes littering the area. If you end up attacking one, it will break, and seemingly that's the end of it, right? However, if you are walking around the area and quickly check your 6 for that oh so scary sniper, you might find the angry spirit of the gnome stalking you. It gets to a point that if you stick within an area of the map, the gnome will keep stalking you as long as you're in that area, but only when you're not looking at it. It's equipped with glowing red eyes. I like to think this might be the angry spirits of the gnome you attacked to start this Easter egg, but it could also be one of the gnome's homies just trying to get revenge. I'm unsure if the gnomes do anything beyond just scare the shit out of unsuspecting players, but this one is kind of just more funny to me than anything.
I'm sorry, the red glowing eyes always freaks me the fuck out.
I was a pretty big fan of the Gears franchise back in the day. It's blossomed into something else at this point, I think, but the first 3 games were really stellar. Not only did they have convincing and dramatic stories, but the multiplayer was nothing to turn your nose at either. In Gears of War 3, the developers went all out updating the Gears formula, introducing a lot like new enemies and saying farewell to old friends. God, I still can't get over that one. Whew. In the multiplayer map known as the Slab, there are several oddities around the map, but by far the creepiest one has to be the death row laughter that occurs in the corner of the map. The player must guide this ball to a small hole in the gate that leads down a dark hallway where we can see someone attached to what appears to be an electric chair. If the player successfully guides the ball into the small goal, a rat will bolt out, and if you choose to kill the rat, you will hear a deep laugh seemingly coming from the death row inmate. However, if you don't shoot the rat, then the laugh still happens, but it's also accompanied by a crowd's laughter as well. That's just strange to me. I don't know. And it's honestly a bit more unnerving than just the solo deep laugh. And why does it matter if I kill the rat or not? I guess the audience didn't like the fact you gunned down a defenseless rat or something. I don't know. There are other things around the slab that stand out, like these weird X markings, in which Odd Header on YouTube and others found that these are not actually part of the same wall entity like many of the other graffiti in the map, leading players to believe this Easter egg ran a bit deeper and utilized more of the map itself. There's more to this Easter egg, like developers talking about the Easter egg online before deleting their tweets, and other developers completely forgetting the original purpose. So for now, this Easter egg remains unsolved and is on the top of a lot of players' hit list to try to figure it out. Maybe one day in the future we'll get an answer, but with flaky developer answers and the map already being dug through pretty much fully at this point, seems kind of unlikely. Well, in my opinion, that was some of the creepiest Easter eggs in non-horror games that I could find. What did you think about the video and this topic, huh? Leave me a comment. Let me know down below. Is it something you guys want to see more of? Want me to continue on in the future? Let me know in the comments, because there's definitely more entries out there. And also let me know if you have any creepy...
I'm kind of sitting in a dark room, so I don't want anything that's going to freak me out too bad. You know, there's another one about creepy things in normal games.
Welcome back to the channel, I'm Gambeto Gaming. Today we're taking it back to a classic Gambeto series with a new entry into the Scary Things and Family Friendly Games series. I never really meant to stop doing this series for whatever reason, other projects took priority, but it's about high time we take a look at some more creepy entries from otherwise light-hearted, family-friendly games. Like previous entries, I have pulled a number of today's entries from the previous episode's comment section from you guys. So if you're still rocking rocking with me from back then, from when I was making those videos, then there's a chance your entry will be featured today, only like a year and a half later. And hey, I'm always looking for more entries, so leave your scary memory or a segment from a family-friendly game like the ones we talk about today in the comments down below, and I might talk about your entry in a future part. Like I always say, the number of unique entries we can get from comments is so much more wide and varied than me searching through forums and Reddit, only to see the same couple of entries I've already covered over and over. So this really helps keep the series fresh, and it allows viewer input and all that, so I'd love to see more entries down below. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into some more of the eerie, the creepy, and the downright diabolical. In the past few episodes of this series, some of my favorite games to look at are the strange licensed kids games that could range to stuff like the creepy Silent Hill Winnie the Pooh game, or hey, A Trip to Hell with Tom from Tom and Jerry. To continue to feature these creepy horrors in the series, we are starting this video with the movie tie-in game for Pixar's Ratatouille. A lot like other licensed games from the early 2000s, Ratatouille had several different versions of the game depending on the platform. And of course, they'd be able to promote the game as if it were just the same, at least not changing any of the promotional material like the box art and such. The GBA and PS3 version, same one, same one. A lot of the recommendations for me to cover this game actually came from the GameCube and PS2 versions of the game, which was a stripped down version of the HD PS3 and 360 versions. And in many ways, this version is the definitive version, as even though the PS3 version looks a lot better, it has a lot more jank and way more often. Stuff like the double jump working as if it were programmed by an alien who didn't know like how Earth's gravity works yet. Like, what the hell is this? Playing through this version of the game in preparation for the video, it was so much clearer why this version of the game is by far the most intense and creepiest. As I've never actually played any of the games before, maybe like a couple levels in the PS3 version, this video by Flandrew over on YouTube really helped with how different these games actually were. So check that out if you'd like to see some of the crazy differences between the different versions, because man, that's one of my favorite ways to kill time on YouTube, is look at the vastly different versions of the games they were selling as the same one. Anyway, let's zoom in a little bit, enhance, and really see how creepy this so-called kids game really is. One of the first things I noticed playing the game, besides the fact you can pretty much off the bat murder innocent chicks with a wooden spoon, unprovoked, is the intense and sometimes downright distressing game over screens. We all know the classics when it comes to intense game over screens, and like that, these are over dramatic and accompanied by something I can only describe as a Hans Zimmer riff. Way too intense for a little rat dying. Remy, no! Some of the more depressing ones include Remy being trapped inside this glass jar to, I guess, suffocate. I don't know, we don't have a good angle on the lid here, but my guess is there aren't any air holes in that bitch. We also get to witness Remy drowning alive, with this scene cutting off as he attempts to swim back up to the surface, along with a few others like Remy's last moment before he's eaten alive by a dog. This is one of the things the HD version does terribly in comparison, completely stripping the game over screens of any of this energy, and it's definitely more phoned in here. Don't get me wrong, the solid hit sound effect of him hitting the ground is fucking insane. Like, it sounds real. Sheesh. But then it just instantly cuts to Remy he's chilling, he's fucking bored if anything, and is clearly still alive. Much like the surrounding game, the game over screens in the GameCube version make you feel as small as a rat, like Remy. So, you know, things worked out. Especially with things as simple as a glass jar spelling doom for your life. If the depressing-ass game over screens that could second as a SPCA commercial weren't bad enough, we have some intense-ass boss battles to look at in the game. I use the term boss battle pretty loosely here, as it's more of a level you play through than an actual battle. But hey, I've never turned my nose at this as a battle, so let's see it through, you know? Oh my god, what the hell? I feel like I've seen this before. Where have I seen this, dude? Oh, shit. Yeah, well, immediately when I reached these chase sections in the game, it felt like I was playing through a terrifying segment of the Little Nightmares games. Still not convinced, huh? This is chump status, Game Beta. What are you talking about? Shotgun bro. Shotgun farm lady. Big angry chef chasing you. Big angry chef chasing you. Large fat people grabbing at you by mantling tables. Yeah, man, the comparisons are endless here. Even in a world where this comparison doesn't exist, these chase sections are a little too intense for this type of game. I mean, the game's tutorial ends with Remy and his family being shot at and chased out of their own home. So, to be fair, the HD version is the only one with the actual chase with the shotgun lady, but the GameCube replaced this segment with an equally intense race down a river, which, yes, this is where the brutal drowning game over screen takes place. Jesus, I'm sorry, Remy. Later in the game is where you'll begin to be chased down by the main antagonist chef known as Skinner. He is by far the most menacing boss, as his pure dedication to catch Remy is almost terrifying in of itself. At the end of the day, though, the guy just misunderstands the situation and is really just striving for perfection in his kitchen. And I can't really hate the guy for that. Realistically, right? At the end of the chase segment in the level named The City Market, Skinner will meet a pretty grisly end here. After being chased by not only the old lady, but also Skinner in the segment, this is a well worth reward for me, don't get me wrong. Skinner will slip on a fish that was spilled over onto the floor during the chase and fly into the meat freezer, locking himself in as well. Listen, I don't know how fucking cold this freezer is, but Skinner never stood a chance, dude. Look how quick this is. He instantly freezes to the point of at least hypothermia, right? All while Remy gives him a little wave and a shit-eating smirk before running away. Not even alerting the homeboy that the chef might die in there because you keep it negative fucking 240 Celsius in there. Considering what would happen if he was caught by the chef, listen, again, I don't blame Remy, right? But he fully just left this chef here to freeze to death in the meat freezer. Talk about a harsh fucking death. That would be if he actually died, but luckily it seems someone heard his cries for help and came and got him out of the freezer as he comes back in the final boss battle. I wonder what kind of lie he had to come up with as to how he got in there, because the truth is the biggest L anyone could take against a fucking rat. He does, however, meet a grisly fate once again when the chandelier in the restaurant falls on Skinner, with this being the last we see of him. And I don't know about you, but this guy isn't Luigi, right? He's not surviving something like this. It's always the most grisly way these characters die in these otherwise kid-friendly movies and games that gets me, man. Like a recent one I remember is the Mario crew cutting the brakes on Swanky Kong's cart in the Mario movie. Like, god damn, I've seen tamer racetrack videos on Live Leak than this, dude. What the hell? But yeah, considering Shotgun Granny has a better outcome than Skinner, I'd say Skinner's story is tragic and maybe somewhat deserved. I don't know. I mean, it's one rat, dude, right? Like, you're starting to look like Tom out here, bro. Overall, the boss chase segments are some of the most intense I've seen in a game like this, and were likely too much for kids back in the day to overcome. All I know is, if you played Ratatouille, Little Nightmares would be light work. The only other strange decision for a kids game I noticed was the infamous stealth section. You'll notice with a lot of these licensed kids games, they combine a bunch of gameplay mechanics that have otherwise been perfected by other companies and doing them a whole hell of a lot worse. And it's surprising how well the gameplay mechanics like these stealth work in the game, but these also come with the natural suspense of your typical stealth segments in games. Of course, there have been other kids games to do this and nail the atmosphere, but the overall size of the world surrounding you plus the main threats make these segments feel particularly terrifying. This is largely due to the fact that you're as small as a rat, so most everything that can spot you can wipe you out in a second. It's also super intense because of the hurricane level alarm that plays anytime your little rat ass is sticking out of cover and you get seen. Yeah, the stealth segments are stressful as hell, and even though I never played this as a kid, I could see how the deformed-ass Pixar dogs could be terrifying combined with this loud-ass Amber Alert in your ear every fucking time you get seen. Again, not the first game to do this and make segments like this unnecessarily distressing, but the overall surrounding atmosphere and the size of the enemies and surrounding level make this one uniquely eerie. While there's a lot more surrounding the infamous Ratatouille movie tie-in game, that's all we're going to cover for today, as I think I hit all the notes that I was recommended. Thanks again for sharing with us all this gem of a game, which is weirdly a pretty good platformer, at least on the GameCube and PS2 versions. I feel like Pixar, Disney, or any of these other oddball money glitch games they made back in the day are great fodder for this series. So again, if you know of any other games like this one, let me know about it in the comments. I've been wanting to cover this next entry for the better part of a year now, and it's finally the time. I've been thinking about this so much, I'm not fully convinced I haven't already talked about it on the channel, so if I'm repeating myself here, I apologize. The Tomodachi series is one of the low-hitter Nintendo life simulation series that I'm pretty glad is getting a little more love after the hiatus from Tomodachi Life on 3DS. If you've never played a Tomodachi game, it's basically the same idea as a Tamagotchi pet, but instead of a pet, it's a series of Miis you check in on while they live their lives. While there are objectives and overall gameplay elements, it's really all about spectating and taking in these Mii's lives, no matter how weird it gets. Over the course of the original 2 Tomodachi games, there were a number of equally strange and creepy stuff to see throughout, and today's entry will cover both the DS and 3DS versions of the dream sequences within the game. The dream sequences are cutscenes and minigames that can be viewed when a Mii is sleeping, when they're getting their honk choo. There are multiple dreams across the 2 games with enough to have a list of the creepier ones, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first game, Tomodachi Collection, only released in Japan for the Nintendo DS. I'd say out of the 2 games, Tomodachi Collection definitely has a creepier lot of the dreams, but that's not to say that Life doesn't have its fair share too, specifically one that feels like it was designed to tweak me out, freak me out, you know? Maybe it's due to the shoddier visuals or the fact they really tried anything for these dream sequences. Tomodachi Collection's dream sequences skeeve me out in a certain way that Life just doesn't. Starting off, we have a strange one, not really creepy, but more just grim as hell. We can see 2 Miis on top of a large tower that seems to be a bungee jumping ledge of sorts. However, if you look closely, there's no bungee jump cord attached to either one of these fools, specifically the one closest to the edge. The jumping Mii will say they need a minute before they end up possibly slipping or maybe even being pushed by the other Mii here. It doesn't show it, but man, homie was taking a fat minute. This guy seemed pretty impatient. Considering they were getting ready to jump without the proper equipment anyway, it does come off as like a purposeful jump here, but it also comes off that the homie didn't survive this push. He's down there, but he ain't down there, you know what I'm saying? Maybe he doesn't have fall damage in his dreams, but I've fallen from a high place in my dreams and broke my legs before, so that's probably just me not having enough potassium in my real life diet. But that's a hell of a dream perk you got equipped there, brother. That's crazy. Again, not super creepy, but kind of grim if this guy didn't survive, right? I mean, at the very least, they could have shown him flying away like a bird after, or I don't know, animate a bungee string on the homie's back, for God's sake. Next, we transcend the Earth's atmosphere where we can see a Mii floating in space with really nothing to grab onto out there. If this were a spacewalk, you know, he would have had some sort of cord attached to him or something, or at least a little rocket booster pack on, but it appears he's out here very ill-equipped. Not only that, but whoever created this helmet doomed this guy from Jump Street. What the hell's going on here? This shit wouldn't work underwater, much less in fucking space. Like, what the hell? I guess technically it is a dream, so dude can breathe in space, sure. It still doesn't stop the absolute terror of floating through space without any way of getting back home. Not only this, but as the player yourself, you can flick/launch the Mii into a whole nother universe and watch as they slowly fade away into outer space at an extreme force. What a terrifying experience, man. Imagine dreaming you're floating in the darkest parts of space and a giant alien hand comes and flicks you several galaxies over. Lastly, for Tomodachi Collection is the creme de la creme of these creepy dreams, a true fucking nightmare. In this dream, you are able to manipulate your Mii's head and neck by outstretching it and drawing their neck longer and longer, following your stylus. Almost like you're painting your Windows XP desktop with documents window, except it's the neck of your Mii instead. Yeah, if it's not creepy enough just watching this, it's also accompanied by some pretty surreal music that really sets a creepy mood. Not only that, but the dream is based off a real Japanese folklore creature known as Rokurokubi. The legend of the Rokurokubi tells of an otherwise normal human having the ability to either fully detach their head or extend their neck Mr. Fantastic style. They're out there looking like Mr. Richards. There are a few different versions of the Rokurokubi, with the long neck version thought to have come from some misinterpretations of the Nukakukubi, the version with the detached head, where some thought that a string or maybe even the creature's neck was attached to the body. This ended up creating an entirely new version of the legend, which is now represented in this absolute acid nightmare and is by far the most disturbing dream sequence in either game, honestly. Anytime a Rokurokubi is represented, it completely floors me in terror, and even in some of the tamer examples like here, it still creeps me out, man. Still one of my favorite yokais out there. Tomodachi Life was in most ways a direct upgrade to Tomodachi Collection, and with it being an international release, it brought a lot more eyes to the series. Tomodachi Life brought back the dream sequences, with most of them being overall upgrades to the originals, but again, I'd say the dreams in Collection are much more surreal and creepy. The ones in Life are more interactable and fun. That's not to say, though, there aren't a few dream sequences here that are less than happy-go-lucky, we'll say. For example, there is a dream that breaks the fourth walls of both the player and their Mii as your Mii sits at their kitchen table. Opening the drapes will reveal that the 3DS camera is in use and you yourself are staring in at your own Mii. This dream is more like an Inception level of an eerie, but it's still out there if you think about it too much, you know? Maybe those dreams are the closest thing these Miis will come to realizing they're stuck in a video game. Moving on before we get too heady here, this dream sequence sees the dreaming Mii as a backpack clip on a backpack of another Mii. The larger Mii appears to be lost in the woods at night and is frantically looking for their way home. And all the while, you know, the smaller Mii character is just bouncing up and down, not helping at all. Overall, it's a pretty fun dream sequence to mess around in, but the surrounding story that is unfolding is kind of a nightmare situation. This Mii got really lucky, man. They could have been the unlucky one to be lost in the woods, but nah, I'm a backpack accessory. Let's go. The next dream sequence can either be seen as hilarious or kind of disturbing, I guess depending on what time of night you're playing at. The next dream shows the dreaming Mii visiting the docks near the water, where after a moment, other larger Miis will emerge behind in the water as if they were large sea monsters. I think this one kind of speaks for itself, especially if you have like thalassophobia or megalophobia or any of that. There are some variations of this dream with it sometimes only having one sea monster, while sometimes it's multiple. Plus, depending on how fucked up the Miis that are filling your island are, you could get some pretty candid scares with this one, you know? This next dream, you might have actually had a version of this dream in your life, and it seems like it's straight out of an analog horror project on YouTube or something. The dream will see two Miis driving in a car at night in the woods, with a third acting as a dashboard bobblehead. Again, I'd rather be the accessory Mii in the situation. The two Miis will occasionally stop to have a strange short conversation that seems super out of place while driving through a dark forest at night.
What now? What's 1 + 1? 2? Correct.
I think this is one of the eeriest dreams, not just due to the surrounding environment, but the strange-ass conversations that Miis have, which represent the garbled conversations you'd have in a dream, or at least the ones you'd remember when you woke up anyway. In my opinion, it's the most nightmarish besides the long neck one from Collection, and is one of the most relatable, as I've had nightmares of driving at night, and the main conflict is I'm lost and or my car is breaking down, and I will be lost and stranded. The only thing that could really make this creepier is if a fourth Mii would slowly cross in front of the car anytime they stopped to talk. Moving on to the last dream today, and after seeing some footage of it, you might know why I included it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of mirrors, okay? And anytime mirrors are used for horror-related things, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. This dream keeps things pretty tame. They're not over here trying to play a game of Bloody Mary or anything, but it's still a bit creepy. One of the creepiest things for mirrors to me is the idea that your reflection is another version of yourself that can think independently. This is when you get things like your reflection doing something different than what you do, some real Norman Osborn shit. The dream will see your Mii doing different things in front of a mirror only for its reflection to be doing something completely different. Not only this, but sometimes the Mii's reflection can change to a completely different Mii altogether, which again, the more fucked up the Mii, the more creepy this will be. You know, your mileage may vary, type beat. Overall, the Tomodachi series plays it pretty safe with the creepy elements, but goes just far enough to be unnerving, and enough for me to want to see more of these in future games. And seeing as a more traditional Tomodachi is coming to Switch, I'll be excited to see if they add any more of these nightmare segments. I mean, the game's subtitle is Living the Dream, so based on these things, I fucking hope not. I've covered a lot of Kirby games in this series as it's the poster child for a seemingly friendly kids game turned disturbing, more disturbing than you could have ever thought. Today, I want to tackle an entry I've been recommended more than anything else Kirby in the history of Kirby. That, of course, is Kirby 64, and more specifically, Level 5 Shiver Star. Overall, Kirby 64 is a highly disturbing game and leaves the players with more questions than answers by the end of it. Whether it's the strange body horror with Kirby's friends, the disturbing and destructive dark matter, and the creepiest dark ending in any Kirby game, Kirby 64 has a lot of examples as to why it's the creepiest Kirby game. Hell, there are even implications of God and angels with the final boss known as 02, who takes the form as this monstrosity and eerily resembles biblically accurate angels. This leaves many to believe that 02 is either a messenger of God or God itself. Either way, dude isn't fucking around, alright? With all of that said, we are going to be focusing on a certain world, World 5, known as Shiver Star, as I stated earlier. If you would like to see everything dark in Kirby and a further breakdown of everything creepy in that game, I'd recommend checking out this video by Silvery. It's a great watch. But for me today, out of all my recommendations I've seen for Kirby 64, multiple have recommended me looking to Shiver Star, and hey man, it's for good reason. This whole world seems eerily familiar when you roll up to it, especially compared to the other planets you've seen thus far in the game. As you make your way through the levels, you will see evidence of an advanced civilization here, but no one but typical Kirby enemies are inhabiting it. As you make your way through the world, you'll enter an intense factory level that has a lot of unnerving sections and enemies. All of this is topped off by one of the creepiest robot boss battles since the likes of Chaos in Donkey Kong Country 3. Real ones know what I'm talking about. The boss battle is super intense, with the robot giving it its fucking all here. I mean, Jesus Christ. If you happen to run out of time in the boss battle, you will also be forced to make a difficult decision. Get chopped up by the giant robot or jump to your death into the destroyed city down below. Many have assumed that all of this evidence is some sort of civilization that has since perished, and quite possibly by the hands of the very robots Kirby is destroying. Many believe this is a version of Earth itself that has met a devastating end, advancing to a point of building robots to the point where they take over, likely causing a nuclear winter, wiping out all of humanity and sending Earth into another ice age. By this time, Kirby and crew rolls in only to find a ghost planet of a civilization that spelt its own end. Listen, man, this theory, along with the evidence, makes me believe when this actually happens to Earth in real life, a giant pink bubble alien will come to Earth and look around and push the big delete button on everything AI. Everything from militarized robots to the cringy AI pictures that fool old people on Facebook. Get it out of here, Kirby. Get it all gone, dude. So yeah, not only is this level hella depressing once you start to put the parts together, but it also gives you a sense of existential dread. How far down the rabbit hole we are in the world, with everything from weapons manufacturing to technology like AI becoming too reliant. It seems that Earth has a pretty good chance of becoming a real life Shiver Star. And if that doesn't send a shiver down your spine, then I don't know what will. Boo! Kirby 64 is such a surreal experience, and I think Shiver Star showcases that in the smaller picture within a world that tells its own story and doesn't really connect to the bigger story other than collecting the necessary shards. Super disturbing world, and one of the creepiest things I've seen in the series thus far. So yeah, you know, if you're watching this video and you gotta play a Kirby game for the first one, I'd recommend Kirby 64, man. I think there are ones that are more definitive Kirby experiences, but this one is definitely one you should check out if you're considering playing the Kirby series. Never forget, Kirby 64 is a horror game. Hey guys, throwing in a quick epilepsy warning here. If you have any epilepsy conditions, please consider skipping this entry. Seriously, this next game is really hard to look at, so I really don't want to surprise anybody, shock anybody with this. The gameplay in this next segment is rough on the eyes. Also, I'd say anyone watching this in a dark room or anything like that, just get ready, man. It's rough. Anyway, let's get into it. The Amiga is home to some strange-ass games. Some great games, but looking back, it houses some of the stranger releases from the early 90s. The Amiga was a line of Commodore home computer systems that had several variations throughout the years. The system for the time was pretty impressive, specifically with the graphics it could produce compared to others around that era of gaming. A lot of the games are very vibrant, bright, and colorful, which was due to the ability for the Amiga to produce animated planar graphics with up to 4,096 colors, otherwise deemed ham mode. I don't know, ham is usually like a couple colors to me, so it's strange just representing this advanced coloring tech for the time, but what do I know? With this tech in the Amiga, they were able to release some really visually stunning games for the time, ones that surpassed games that would release in the coming few years after that even, on consoles like the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Obviously, it's dependent on the developer, so there's a fair share of games that haven't aged very well visually, but looking back at the catalog, there are a lot of games that utilize this technology and it works really well. I mean, just peep this guy's walk cycle, right? I'm sorry, I love the 3D, 2D character models, the Donkey Kong Country series and whatnot, but they weren't animating full motion cycles like my man here. What the hell? All of this to say, the console has had its fair share of games that really took things to another level. A weird level. I'm only covering one game today, but there are quite a few Amiga games that could work great for the series, like Apidia or Weird Dreams. Also, considering most of these games were released before the ESRB was established, it's a gray area as to if these games were actually meant to be family friendly or not. One that we'll be taking a look at today, no question was it being marketed towards a younger audience who enjoyed 2D platformers. I mean, the box art alone is clearly trying to compete with Mario and Sonic on the store shelves. And gotta say, this product laying inside this box couldn't be further from what this fucking represents. I tried my damnedest, I'm talking my damnedest, to set up an Amiga emulator on my computer to capture footage for this entry, because this looks like a game you need to play to experience, right? But unfortunately, my dumb monkey brain got stuck around when it was asking me for a ROM boot or some shit like that. Hey, I think I got one of those the other week in Animal Crossing. That's crazy. Therefore, I researched the game by watching reviews and reading overviews of the game online, and I gotta say, I found one of the best game reviews ever on YouTube. Not only is this a great overview of the game, but it's quite humorous to boot, as Top Banana is not only terrifying, but also is a very infuriating experience as a video game. So yeah, huge shouts out to Orin Clubs on YouTube, where he died for our sins. Because holy shit, this game looks like a chore to get through, man. Top Banana is a short platforming game where your main goal is to reach the top of each stage to fight a boss and collect a disembodied head. Doing this looks a lot easier than it is actually to do, as the main character is hella slippery, and the whole mechanic of recovering health was developed by like a gnat or something, I don't even know. If it's not apparent already, the levels in this game are an assault on the eyes, and that's a fucking understatement. It's so bad, in fact, that certain players may find the gameplay physically painful to look at. This is due to just stuff like very cluttered palette sets, along with using real life photos and elements as your enemies and characters. There's no depth, and everything just kind of blends together in a huge messy painting of a video game. This belongs in the trash type of art, you know what I'm saying? Not only is Top Banana the worst looking platforming game on the market, it's also one of the most unnerving. Acid Nightmare is yet another understatement here, guys. The only through line you could see through this crazy ass game is the theme of becoming green, with enemies like bulldozers and chainsaws making up the bulk of early level enemies. Not only that, but bosses that are disembodied heads of big cat businessmen make the blurry through line at least a little bit visible, right? Everything else here is up in the air for me. Like, what the hell are these? Or those? Or these? Or those? These fucked up skeleton heads? Hey, they're just par for the course, man. And they appear as soon as the first fucking level. However, with all of this, right, the creepiest part is without a doubt the sound design and the music, or I guess lack thereof. All of the tracks in the game are nonsensical, with the only consistent sound being that of the moans of the main character, who, by the way, who the hell is on the box art, because that ain't that, bruh. Throughout the whole game, it's a trippy, disturbing experience, and if you can stand the horrific gameplay, you'll be more than disturbed by the end of it, man. I mean, with mechanics like shaking the screen while it's moving up while you're platforming, or turning the already intrusive colors inverted, this wasn't made for a quality playing experience. There's just no way. It feels way more like a trippy art project that got way too far, which it seems the origins of Top Banana run parallel with this theory of mine, as the developers were originally DJs who wanted to expand their media presence by getting into the digital media market like video games. They even made a weird ass music video to promote the game. It doesn't get any more out there than this, man. Again, huge shout outs to Orin Clubs for the great synopsis and review of the game, so I didn't have to suffer through the game myself. This has to be one of the most unappealing, disturbing platforming kids games that's ever existed, man. And trust me, that's going up against some pretty heavy hitters. Shooting forward about a decade from when the Amiga age was prevalent, we see the introduction of the early 2000s 3D modeling and horrifying graphics. A game development company, Axisoft, wanted to revolutionize a classic video game, Snake, which they brought into the modern era with the release of Axie Snake in 2001. Axie Snake features several levels that reflect the main gameplay of the classic Snake game, where you collect food to grow your snake longer and avoiding hitting yourself, all that good mumbo jumbo. In Axie Snake, there are several more things to worry about than running into yourself, as the game features a new perspective and takes the game into 3D. Each level will start out with a small baby snake that will eventually grow bigger as you collect more fruit in the level. Some of the obstacles include rocks, wall mazes, and a large monster lurking in the darkest part of every level. This guy is the main creep factor to the game, as he's always lying in the wake, waiting to catch you fucking lacking. If you do happen to go out of bounds, you will be immediately eaten no matter the size of your snake, with the only thing left being your motionless body. We don't even get a clear view of what this creature is. Sure, most likely it's just a bigger snake, but this could be anything, as we only get a clear view of its eyes and a small glimpse at its mouth when it chomps down on you. This is definitely horrifying, as he's always watching you, waiting, and you can constantly catch his red eyes staring at you from a distance. But the overall atmosphere of the game is off-putting as well. I don't know if it's just the early 2000s jank 3D models or what, but the overall game feels very claustrophobic and a little unnerving. Not only does the out-of-bounds area serve as an instant death jump scare of sorts, it also surrounds each level in a deep dark blackness that really makes the mood a lot creepier. Without a doubt, this has to be one of the most terrifying out-of-bounds punishments I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, really.
That'll do it for today's video. Again, please leave me some suggestions for future entries in the comments down below, and I'll feature you in a future episode. Thanks to everyone for today's suggestions, and
Alright. Ooh. Creepy things found in Mortal Kombat. Sure, why not?
We all know Mortal Kombat used to have a dark aesthetic, right? Instead of the bright, vibrant colors of Mortal Kombat 11, as seen here, Mortal Kombat used to be very dark and dreary, giving off this energy where it's just merciless and unforgiving. Although this dark aesthetic hasn't been around a lot since, there have still been a few dark, creepy, or disturbing things found in the games. Like this video if you enjoy and subscribe. Because it is Halloween night when this video releases, I decided we will be looking at some of the dark, creepy, or downright disturbing things found in Mortal Kombat. Let's get into it. The stages of Mortal Kombat are, in my opinion, one of the most important part of when making the aesthetic of the game. We all know the classics, the pit, the Deadpool, and my personal favorite, the armory. Some of these stages, however, are very creepy and unsettling, like the Living Forest, the bottom of the pit, and especially the flesh pits. The Living Forest is just downright disturbing to me. As a kid, I was always scared of the faces on the trees, and when I found out the reasons they have faces is because people were lost in the woods and became the trees, you bet I was terrified as a child. The bottom of the pit is the unsettling because this is where it all happens. This is where all the death and blood happens from the long fall of the bridge of the pit. And you know the poor souls who fell off the bridge knew there was no possible way to survive the fall. Now, the flesh pits. The flesh pits was introduced back in Mortal Kombat 9 and was one of the only few original stages from that. This is where all the experiments happen. This is where Shang Tsung's experiments take place, like Melina's creation. Just think of all the messed up things that have taken place here. The music of Mortal Kombat has always been a big thing to the series, especially when Techno Syndrome exists, and that's a big thing for the series. Even if the newer games don't have as memorable soundtracks, there are still some songs that just make you want to listen to it over and over again, like Shao Kahn's Throne Room from Mortal Kombat 9, the Armory from Mortal Kombat 9, and the Temple. But the main menu music doesn't get talked about enough as I think it should, especially the 3D era main menu music. In Mortal Kombat X, they tried to bring this back, and in my opinion, it kind of worked, but look at it when I add the main menu music from Mortal Kombat Armageddon to it. The music just perfectly sums up what Mortal Kombat is to me: merciless and unforgiving. Mortal Kombat's crypt has always been a bit creepy, right? Especially in Mortal Kombat X, that was terrifying to me as a kid. But I really like the Mortal Kombat 11 crypt. Just look at this and notice the silence. To me, it doesn't feel as creepy as the Mortal Kombat X one, but more lonely. The difference to me is you load in and then that sudden feel of loneliness just kicks in. These last two were taken by Brustpote's Disturbing Things Found in Mortal Kombat video, because I really want to talk about these because I think it's very, very interesting. We all know in Mortal Kombat 3, Johnny Cage was not playable. Back in the 90s, an audio was released somewhere online. It is very creepy and I will play it now.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to mourn the death of Johnny Cage. Killed at the hands of Kintaro during the second Mortal Kombat, he was only 29 years old.
Also on the topic of Mortal Kombat 3, when you go into the audio files, of course you can find all the soundtracks, music, and other sound effects. But one audio file was found, and let me just say, I have no idea why this was put in the game at all, and I have no idea what this has to do with Mortal Kombat. I must warn you, this is very creepy and unsettling. All I can say is, it's a man with a creepy voice, with creepy music in the background, reciting some kind of poem. I'll play it now, but I must warn you, this is very disturbing.
Is the voice of the lobster. I heard him declare, with his too brown, I must sugar my hair. As it up with its eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons and turns down his toes. When the sands are all dry, he is gay as a lark, and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and tremulous sound. I passed by his garden and marked with one eye, while the owl and the panther were sharing a pie. The panther took pie crust and gravy and meat, while the owl had the dish as its share of the treat. When the pie was all finished, the owl as a boon was kindly permitted to pocket the spoon, while the panther received knife and fork with a growl, and concluded the banquet.
If anyone knows why this was put in the game, please put it in the comments, because I am considering making a video about this in the future. It's honestly scary why this sort of satanic sounding audio was put deep into the files of the game.
Well, that was a short but sweet video. Oh yeah, there's that stupid, Scooby-Doo game jump scare I was talking about. I miss when Mortal Kombat embraced its horror elements. Yeah. This is the voice of a lobster as a poem from Alice in Wonderland. I don't know why it's here, but maybe going into the crypt is the same as going into a rabbit hole. I'm sure there's a deeper meaning to it. Huh. There's something about Shaolin monks and deception that just creeped me out. Yeah. Yeah, the morning audio was exactly, that was more unsettling than the poem. Fun fact, in MK11, if you put on Kenji's mask for too long, a figure will kill you. You may recognize... Huh? I don't think... So if you have it for too long, it's just a jump scare that happens when you first put the blindfold on. You can hit him with Shao Kahn's hammer and receive a reward. What the hell are they talking about? I don't think I played that game enough to really know what they're talking about. Zombie loot gang always scared me. Yeah, that Johnny Cage eulogy audio was creepier than the poem one, dude. Well, there's another secrets and Easter eggs.
Welcome back to the channel. I'm Gambito Gaming, and welcome back to a dormant series on the channel, one I've been pretty excited to get back into, that of course being creepy Easter eggs from video games. And today we are taking a look at some more obscure Easter eggs that end up being missed by a majority of players who played these games. So instead of just general Easter eggs, I wanted to go a little bit more obscure with these, so hopefully you find some you've never heard of before. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Amnesia doesn't take it easy when it comes to scaring the player. That's kind of the whole thing with the game. A lot of stuff comes to mind, but the biggest one is the fact you can't fight back in the games. This is then built upon with things like sanity systems, disturbing ass enemies, and small Easter eggs that are pretty easily missed throughout the game. If you're unfamiliar, the main antagonist of the first game is an entity known as Alexander, who takes the form as a human, as a baron in a castle, who then carries out rituals, which include things like torture. Alexander, even though only represented in a human form, is revealed to have come from another dimension, and only takes up this human form as he was being exiled from his dimension for crimes that were never described in the game further. Like a lot of old school kings and barons, Alexander is feeling himself in this game. He's got a lot of self-portraits up. And this seems normal enough and likely won't seem too out of place for the environments in the game. That is, unless you take a peek at the painting again when your sanity is low, in which the painting switches to this disturbing disfigurement of Alexander. It looks like those old school clay freaky ass art videos people would used to do on YouTube. Many fans have assumed this version of Alexander is actually a representation of his real form and only reveals its true form when the player is literally losing their mind. This isn't the most well hidden Easter egg in the game, to be fair, but the simplistic nature of this Easter egg, along with just how disturbing the real form of Alexander is, has really cemented the moment in my mind when I think of Amnesia. I mean, that and the goddamn Heath Ledger wannabe, you know?
Oh, know how I got these scars?
What was originally meant to be a fun alternate ending for the original Star Fox on Super Nintendo, the Out of This Dimension level took a whole new legacy online as being a terrifying experience that was easily missed by a lot of players. To experience this mysterious level, players must destroy a certain asteroid in the level 3 asteroid belt that will spawn a large egg. Yeah, this one's a literal Easter egg. Try to tell me it's not. Ha! After shooting the egg, a large bird-like phoenix will pop out of the egg, and if you fly the R-wing into it, the screen will warp and fade out into a brand new level. Entering into the level, you'll hear comms from your team asking where Fox went and stating he's needed to protect Corneria, so rest in peace, guys. With this, players play out one of the hardest levels in the game with continuous enemies shooting at you until you die, meaning it's pretty much an endless endurance until you meet that ill-fated fate. Hey, ill-fated fate. The level is visually very different from anything you'd see in the normal adventure, with things like planets with faces, warping textures that look like a stalker anomaly out here, and the fact there's this goofy ass circus music popping off in the background. On paper, yeah, this seems like it's a fun, nice little Easter egg to serve as an alternate ending to the game, but in practice, it's on the same level as the acid nightmare that was the purple elephant scene in the original Dumbo, if anyone's familiar with that. Taking a step back from the level itself, the implications left over from the overall story of the game is very dark and grim. Not only is Cornelia pretty much doomed without Fox there, playing out the actual ending to the game, Fox is also doomed as he can't escape this dimension and meets a pretty grim end here. There are also theories that Fox started to hallucinate after a piece of the asteroid you shoot hits Fox's R-Wing windshield, causing him to start to lose oxygen and pretty much fully hallucinates this level. Meanwhile, he was just slowly dying during the actual level's gameplay. Yeah, it's pretty dark. Listen, whatever the case, the whole package of the out of this dimension level is super creepy, and looking even deeper, it'll just depress you, you know? So why was it included? Well, hey, they had to put the slot machine boss somewhere in the game after all. Look how dope this thing is, man. Gambling is awesome. What do you think Gambato stands for? Gambling. No, that's not real. Don't gamble. Silent Hill Downpour, while still not what fans of the original Silent Hill games wanted, was definitely a better step in the right direction for the series coming from Homecoming. I'd rather not go home if that's what you're dealing out, Silent Hill. Instead of continuing on in the bastardization of the series, making it more action than horror, Downpour tried its best to inject that classic Silent Hill horror into the game, while coming up with some new scares of its own. For example, the subtle creepy scenes you can run into when you look through the binoculars in this one section of the game. If you zoom into the cable car hanging above, you can see a hand come up and slap the window before sliding back down, suggesting that there's probably a zombie or something inside the cable car. Not only this, you can get a peek at the wheelchair ghost, where he's either rolling out to get a pretty good nice view of the mountainside here, or someone cut his brakes and he's reacting to how he actually died in real life, careening off a huge cliff after someone shot him down the balcony, and he just sits out here reliving it every day. Maybe he liked the wind in his hair or something, you know? The creepier secret / Easter egg comes later when you come across this unassuming tire swing, where many players would likely disregard it as just that, because why wouldn't you? It's a fucking tire swing. If you do stick around the area or return later, there is a chance that the tire swing will instead transform into a hanging body. This seems to occur randomly and can happen as quickly as looking away and looking back at the tire swing, so be on your guard around this thing. This caused a lot of players to question their own sanity, as it can just quickly switch back as it appeared, and considering it happens randomly, a lot of players might not have even ever seen it, especially if you're running through these areas, scared to death like I would be. Listen, I've never played Downpour, but as more time passes in between its initial release and now, it's getting more of a fan base, and with unique scares like this in the game, it might be worth going back to. Anyone's favorite Silent Hill Downpour? Let us know in the comments. I promise I won't tear you a new one. I can't speak for others, but I'm just generally interested if anyone's played this and was hooked on the series from it. I have a similar story with the Hitman series. I got hooked on Hitman Absolution, and that is still probably my favorite one in the whole series, and that is a sin. So now that I've confessed, Silent Hill fans, confess down below. Resident Evil 4 has a lot of creepy enemies to run across, one of the worst for me being these large saber-tooth-like enemies known as Garrotters. I hate how they charge at Leon whenever you fuck up and make a noise, man. However, unlike the Garrotters, the subject of this Easter egg can't even attack Leon, but has the potential to be one of the creepiest things in the game, depending on if you even saw it or not. If you're not familiar, you can run across a dumpster in Chapter 5, which the player can open, revealing a strange white sack inside that will start to wriggle around grossly. You can even attack the creature in the sack, which will immediately kill it, which will end its skin-crawling wriggling, thank God. That means there is something alive in the bag, or at least it was until you fucking killed it in cold blood. And this is even backed up by the fact if you look at the bag in the infrared scope, it will return a heat signature, meaning there is something definitely in there. Leon and Ada can check the bag separately, which it returns the following descriptions. Leon will state, "What the hell is this thing?" Ada will say, "How disgusting, no way I'm touching that." Due to nothing really happening after killing the creature in the bag, as it doesn't drop any loot or anything, the mysterious nature of this creature has only spawned some strange theories online. However, the most likely reason for this seemingly random entity is to not only build out the disturbing environments in the game, but to trick the players into shooting the bag in order to alert a nearby regenerator and have them aggro onto the player. Sure, this is more of a secret than an Easter egg, but considering it's so random and a one-off occurrence, it sticks out to those who've run into it, and with no further explanation or reasoning, it served as a mysterious piece of Resident Evil 4's history. While the bag itself didn't return in the 2023 remake, there are subtle references to the creature in the way of these hanging white sacks in the specimen storage. Honestly, a little bit creepier to me in this form than laying flat in a fucking garbage can. It's likely all we see here is what we get, but that still doesn't mean it isn't one of the creepier things in the game, even if just due to how much mystery surrounds the entity. I mean, it's Schrodinger's cat. It's Leon's cat. Ocarina of Time has a lot of moments where the game is eerie as hell, with things like the bottom of the well and the Shadow Temple, just to name a few. But the game has a lot of smaller moments where it took players by surprise. For example, one of these happens at the Lakeside Laboratory near Lake Hylia, where you can participate in a diving minigame, where a scientist measures how deep Link can dive. If you use the golden skull or the iron boots, you can reach the bottom of the diving pool, wherein you find a few secrets, including the scientist rewarding Link with a piece of a heart container for reaching the bottom, as well as a few rupees and a golden skulltula, which are the only things really worth collecting down here. But if you swing the camera around, you can find something pretty eerie staring back at Link the whole time he was down there. There is a shark peeking out of a small cage on the opposite wall of the pit, where there is a low quality image of a shark inside, but not low quality enough you can still tell what the fuck it is. Not only is the shark realistic looking, considering there are no other sharks that look like this in the game, this definitely took players by surprise, jump scaring many at that. I could definitely feel distress looking at this, as not only is it a fucking shark underwater, and as I've covered on the channel before, I'm not so much of a fan of them, but it's also reminiscent of the Marty the Thwomp behind the cage from Mario Kart 64, which similarly always skeeved me out a bit. There really isn't a purpose to the shark here, as no one really ever mentions it again in the game, not even the scientist. Hell, he might not even know it's down here. He could be collecting rent from the guy. This has spawned many theories as to why the shark is there, with some suggesting that the scientist does actually know and brought a shark from the ocean to run experiments on down there. Others suggest that the shark itself is a puppet or a stuffed shark of some kind, seeing as it never moves around and seems to be dead throughout your time in the water pit. Had this been an enemy that breached the cage and snapped at Link like the eel from Super Mario 64 or these Mucinex guys from Banjo-Kazooie, then we likely wouldn't be talking about the homie, but due to his obscurity and mysterious nature, he cemented himself as one of Ocarina's strangest unsolved secrets.
Yeah, this was the first time I ever heard about him, though.
The Metal Gear Solid series really doesn't miss, and each entry is unique from the rest, with references throughout the series to previous games and characters throughout. One of the strangest Easter eggs from the series came from the gem that is Metal Gear Solid 4, wherein the game references a strange codec from Metal Gear Solid 2 surrounding alien abductions. If you're not familiar, AI codecs will start coming in to the player during Metal Gear Solid 2 to try and attempt to get the player spooked and stop playing the game. So many of the codecs that come through during the ending of Metal Gear Solid 2 are very strange in nature, including the one that is referenced in this Easter egg. The codec comes from a fake version of Colonel Campbell, where he recounts the following.
Raiden, something happened to me last Thursday when I was driving home. I had a couple of miles to go. I looked up and saw a glowing orange object in the sky to the east. It was moving very irregularly. Suddenly, there was intense light all around me, and when I came to, I was home. What do you think happened to me? Huh? Fine. Forget it.
This is a clear reference to your typical real-life alien abduction stories you would hear from those who suspected they were abducted by aliens, including bright lights, time distortion, and teleportation. However, understanding that this is coming from an AI version of Campbell, it's easily disregarded as gibberish. That was until it was once again referenced in Metal Gear Solid 4. During this section of the game, you can run across a mini crop circle where an echoey version of the same codec will begin to play, which does suggest that this codec codec may not have been a work of fiction, but rather aliens do actually exist in this universe, with the crop circle being the main piece of evidence here. However, as many fans point out, why would Snake recount this memory in Metal Gear Solid 4, as Raiden was the one who originally heard this codec? But regardless of this small continuity error, this small Easter egg is definitely mysterious, and unless it is truly a small nod to the paranormal and that's it could suggest something much more alien that we haven't seen in the Metal Gear universe yet. I mean, to be honest, it wouldn't be that strange if aliens did exist in the Metal Gear universe, because, well, it's already otherworldly enough with some of the scenes in these games, but you know what I'm saying. I really hope we get a modern port or remake of Metal Gear Solid 4 someday, because it's still landlocked on the PlayStation 3, which is one of the modern day travesties a lot of people don't talk about, so I'm rallying for it. We finally got Red Dead Redemption on PC. Let's get that Metal Gear Solid 4 on there next, please. I really need to see this guy shit his pants in high definition, 60 frames, no less. The world of Cyberpunk, while it wasn't being a buggy mess, is actually a pretty dense one with a lot of tiny corners and stories to see. A lesser known area in the game is what appears to be a mass grave of sorts for mannequins that is located here on the map at the end of this road. The lake is filled with a red, strange liquid substance similar to blood, with about a dozen mannequins in the lake facing down, floating. Without much information online about the creepy lake besides people sharing their experiences on forums with it, there wasn't much to go off of. That was until players discovered a readable shard that can be found in a nearby backpack that explains the creepy scenario. The shard reads the following: "To the cast and crew of Hell Lake 3, it is with profound sadness that I inform you that 24 frames per second studios, renowned for productions such as You Whisper, I Scream, Corpse Mountain 1 and 2, Reservations for Revenge, and Hell Lake 1 and 2, is suspending all operations effective immediately. The reason for this difficult decision was the withdrawal of our largest sponsor, Constitutional Arms. Unfortunately, this means we're halting the production of Hell Lake 3, and due to our current financial insolvency, all salaries have been suspended until further notice. All property of 24 FPS, such as cinematography equipment, scenery, etc., must remain on set. When possible, I will arrange to have it transported. All I can ask of you now is to keep your chins up and stay wonderful, creative people that you are. We'll get through this. Kevin Frazier, President, 24 frames per second." Due to the immediate closure of the film company, the shooting of Hell Lake 3 ended so abruptly that everyone dropped everything and left, leaving a hellscape of mannequins and a literal hell lake, only for your character to stumble across randomly. This is a creepy spin on the classic guy interrupting film thinking he's saving the day scenario, but kind of works in the opposite way, where the terrifying abandoned set is actually creepier than the film they were actually working on. The small story the eerie lake tells and the throw off of it not actually being of sinister origin is a reason I still give CD Projekt Red some credit, just a little bit, even after the disastrous launch of Cyberpunk. Listen, there's some gems like this in the game, and if you were burned by the game, it may still be worth hopping back into if stuff like this interests you. Since the beginning of the series, there has been a pretty terrifying Easter egg in the Fatal Frame series that is actually pretty easy to miss if you're an attentive gamer. The whole idea of leaving an Easter egg in if the player leaves the game idle too long is nothing new, with a few of my favorites being Mario falling asleep in Super Mario 64, Kazooie pecking on Banjo's eyes in Banjo-Kazooie, and Donkey Kong pulling out a 3DS in Donkey Kong Country Returns. Fatal Frame was one of the earliest series to turn these idle Easter eggs into something creepy, sometimes jump scary. Since Fatal Frame 1, if you leave the game idling too long without pausing, the game will flash some sort of visual on the screen, with it being bloody handprints covering the screen in the first game. However, as many fans would agree, I find that the Fatal Frame 2's idle screen Easter egg is easily the most terrifying in the whole series. An eerie image of this ghost lady will flash onto the screen intermittently until the player returns, making for one hell of a jump scare when you get back with your pizza rolls. Better make sure those things are glued to the plate. Holy shit. Since then, the series has made variations of the same idle screen Easter egg, but none will be as creepy as the jump scares in Fatal Frame 2. This would even inspire future idle Easter eggs, like a pretty creepy one where if you're playing Zombie Army 4 on a PlayStation 4 and you have your controller speaker up, it will start playing this eerie sound clip if you leave the game on.
Where did you go?
These are always the best kind of Easter eggs, as it's a great way for a game developer to directly mess with the player, and only certain types of players at that. Personally, I couldn't imagine getting up without pausing the game first. Listen, I played way too many farming simulators to be comfortable leaving a game idle, but for the carefree gamers out there, this Easter egg is for y'all. If you're not familiar with the Soul series, you're probably at least familiar with the fact that it's extremely difficult.
Are you dense? Are you...
It's a balance of being impossibly difficult, but slowly cracking away at learning a boss until you finally beat it like it was never even an issue at all. However, that doesn't mean the game doesn't come with the occasional cheap tricks. In fact, I think this is one of the director of the game's specialties. Miyazaki is a legendary troll in the world of game developers, and that's saying something because there's a lot of these snakes in the grass, if you know what I mean. Even though some of the cheap things in Dark Souls are super obvious, there is a phenomenon that can happen in the game that is actually pretty rare and has often been obtained by accident by players. If you get attacked by one of these enemies carrying eggs on their back, you can see an animation where a strange worm will attack your player, wherein after a few in-game minutes, your character will start to itch the back of their head. You got lice, or is it something worse? After 10 or so minutes, the character will become stun-locked and a large parasite egg grows out of your player's head. Man, there's just something about this that is equally gross and disturbing to me. At first, the parasite head doesn't do a lick of something, anything, nothing, nada. Except for, of course, take half your souls. Man, the payoff better be worth whatever the hell is going to happen with this parasite if it's going to take half of your overall souls. After taking a certain number of souls from the player, the egg will evolve into a bigger egg. Man, was that worth it or what? Luckily, the inventory souls you pop don't get halved, yet still count as being fed to the parasite, so this is a good way to evolve the parasite early on without sacrificing your hard-earned souls you have to endure. The evolved egg, besides being a little bit taller, has an attack packed into it, which is actual cheeks. Listen, it doesn't scale to any stats, and even against the most basic of enemies, it's really bad. That is except for the stagger opportunities for bosses, where you can bully a number of the bosses in the game, leaving them in a stagger hell loop. So hey, it's not all bad, I guess. If you want to spend 30 hours killing a single boss by staggering it to death, then yeah, this is a great way to do that. Not only does your newly fashionable hat allow you to dunk on a number of the bosses, it also allows you to buy 2 unique spells that you can't get otherwise. Not only this, but you can also get a spell to cure the parasite, meaning you won't be cursed to have your souls for the rest of the game, which is also pretty nice. Because yeah, even after the parasite evolves, it still takes half your souls. But come on, the stagger opportunity though. It's worth it. Yeah, in typical Souls fashion, the egg parasite is more of a meme item than anything, but the stagger opportunity could be useful in pairing up for fights against bosses where one egghead staggers the boss and the other player attacks, so the use case for this secret item of sorts isn't non-existent, but truly it is one of the stranger power-up secrets I've seen in a game to this day. Say what you will about the Fallout series, but if you dive deep enough into the games, you can find some deep side stories that really pay off when you get to the end of them. One of the creepier occurrences of a side story happens in the Dunwich building in Fallout 3, which is a pre-war drilling company's headquarters, where it's now abandoned and filled with feral ghouls. It won't take long inside the Dunwich building to start feeling unnerved as you hear unexplained noises around and start having flashbacks to the building in the pre-war era. Besides being an urban explorer's wet dream, you can get some really good content in here. It also houses a side story following a man named Jamie, who you follow his story and exploration of the Dunwich building through his audio logs as you yourself explore it, causing it to almost seem like Jamie is narrating your experience. Except, hey, you're not turning into a ghoul as it's happening. Yeah, you slowly find out that Jamie's father had a book that thus turned his father into a ghoul by reading it, and after finding his father, Jamie obtains the book and slowly descends into the same madness as he's transforming into a ghoul. As you make your way through the building, you end up below the building in a cave where you stumble across a large statue monolith-like thing surrounded by ghouls, and none other than Jamie himself, still alive but fully ghouled up. After wasting the group, you can loot the dead, but other than that, and a clearer view at the statue monolith thing, there isn't much more to this mystery. It does bring up the question if the ghouls' origins are actually due to the nuke, or if they have a much more mysterious origin, like coming from this strange monolith. It's like we stumbled across the ground zero for ghoul spawns underneath this strange building, but this hasn't been built upon further in the game, so unfortunately this is just fan speculation for now. The Dunwich Mystery is a clear reference to H.P. Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror, pulling from the horrors of that story, all while making it fit pretty well in the Fallout universe. The mystery continues in Fallout 4 as the Dunwich Boars is another paranormal location with just as much mystery as the Dunwich building in Fallout 3, but hey, that's for another video. There's something strange and dark going on in the Fallout universe, and it has something to do with this Dunwich bullshit, and we can only hope that Bethesda expands on the Dunwich Mystery further in Fallout 5, and maybe we can finally get some answers to the mysterious side story from so many years ago. Alright, that'll do it for today's video. Thanks to everyone for watching all the way through, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe down below. As well as these creepy Easter egg videos, I cover icebergs and a number of other similar topics on the channel, so if that's your kind of stuff, consider following me for future uploads. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video. Peace.
I have to tell you what happened to me when I was driving home Thursday. I had to go. Oh, you were reciting the thing. Is my mic too low still? It shouldn't be. Huh. Well, anyway. I might call it there, because it's kind of late now. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, that guy's pretty good. A little bit, but I can still hear you. Yeah, I don't know why my mic was so low. It shouldn't be. Even though I'm not using my usual mic, I'm using a different mic on this backup PC, but... Oh, I'm so sorry if you couldn't hear me. My bad. Ugh. Alright. Well, guys. Whoops, wrong one. That one. Okay. Thanks, guys, for joining me on another Spooky Sunday. Let's see if there's anybody to read. Whew. Alright. Let's see here. Ah, alright, well, let's find somebody else then. Damn. Alright, well. Alright, well, doesn't look like there's really anybody to read. So, I'll just go ahead and close it out. Oh. Thank you guys. Oh, I'm yawning. Excuse me. Thank you guys. I'll see you, I don't know, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll see. But appreciate you hanging out with me with my janky little pngtuber thing we had to do. So I love you guys, and I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.